Arav had always been the kind of man who loved deeply and without hesitation. His world was small, but it was warm, built around simple joys, quiet evenings, and the woman he believed destiny had carved for him, Zoya. To him, Zoya wasn't just a person, she was a place, a home, a reason to breathe. For 2 years, he had wrapped his life gently around hers, never once imagining that love could be a weapon turned against him. But love sometimes blinds more than it illuminates, and Arav had been walking through a darkness he didn't even know existed. The first cracks in their paradise appeared subtly. Zoya had become distracted, distant, and strangely guarded. Her phone, once casually lying around, now never left her hand. She had new excuses, late-night meetings, urgent outings, sudden mood swings. Arav convinced himself it was stress or work, anything but betrayal. Because the truth would break him, and some hearts prefer illusions over pain. What he didn't know was that Zoya had already wandered far beyond the borders of loyalty, into the arms of a man who thrived on secrets, manipulation, and danger. Rayan entered Zoya's life like a storm, fast, intoxicating, unpredictable. He was nothing like Arav, and maybe that's why she fell. He offered excitement where Arav offered steadiness, chaos where Arav offered peace. Rayan's world had money, thrill, and promises painted in gold, but underneath lay shadows darker than Zoya realized. She mistook his dominance for passion, his possessiveness for love, and his manipulation for devotion. Slowly, she began to believe that Arav, with all his kindness, was holding her back from the life she deserved. Rayan didn't only want Zoya. He wanted control over her. And Arav, unknowingly, stood in his way. He fed Zoya doubts, poisoning her thoughts with ideas that twisted into resentment. He's too clingy, Rayan said. He doesn't understand your worth. He's stopping you from living freely. Zoya, confused by guilt and temptation, let Rayan's words burrow deep inside her. Soon the guilt turned into irritation, irritation into frustration, and frustration into hatred. She didn't realize that Rayan was shaping her into something she never imagined she could become. One night, Rayan suggested the unthinkable. He spoke of Arav like a nuisance, a loose end, a burden that needed to disappear if Zoya wanted freedom. At first, she resisted, her conscience still clinging to morality. But Rayan knew how to break people softly. He told her that she deserved better, that Arav would survive without her, that maybe he wouldn't even suffer. Zoya hated the thought. But over time, the idea became less monstrous, then tolerable, then inevitable. Arav, oblivious to the poison rising around him, planned a beautiful evening. He cooked Zoya's favorite food, biryani, soft lemon chicken, and sweet kheer, remembering every detail she loved. He had bought a ring, simple but elegant, the kind that held meaning rather than price. His heart raced imagining her smile, imagining a future he believed was real. He lit candles, set the table, played her favorite music. He had no idea the night he planned to propose would be the night he died. Zoya arrived with an empty expression, her mind fractured between guilt and determination. Arav greeted her with warmth, hugged her tightly, kissed her forehead. His embrace felt like home, and for a moment Zoya hesitated. He poured her a drink, her hands trembling as she held the glass. Rayan's instructions echoed in her mind. While Arav turned to check the food, Zoya reached into her pocket, pulling out a small vial Rayan had given her. It's quick, painless, he had promised. Her heart pounded. Her fingers shook. But she poured it into Arav's glass. They sat together, Arav chatting excitedly about silly stories from his childhood, about random memories, about future dreams. Zoya could barely speak. When Arav finally lifted his glass, she held her breath. The moment felt slow, heavy, suffocating. He took a sip, smiled warmly, and thanked her for being in his life. Minutes later, the substance took effect. Arav felt dizzy, his vision blurring. His words slurred. He reached for Zoya, confused and frightened. Zoya, what did you do? His voice cracked with a mixture of betrayal and love. His eyes searched hers, pleading for an explanation, a reassurance, anything. But Zoya froze, terrified not by his dying body, but by her own actions. Arav collapsed onto the floor, reaching out weakly, but Zoya backed away, unable to look at him. His final breath escaped slowly, leaving the room cold and silent. Zoya left the apartment quickly, wiping her tears, convincing herself it was done, that she could start fresh with Rayan. But some beginnings require endings that haunt forever. Rayan arrived an hour later. Using gloves, he erased every trace linking Zoya to the incident. He organized the scene to appear natural, cleaned fingerprints, destroyed evidence. "You're safe," he assured her. But in reality, he had recorded everything, her messages, her calls, even the vial he gave her. He planned to use them to control her, to keep her under his thumb. Zoya didn't know she wasn't free, she was owned. The next morning, Zoya woke up with a pounding headache and a heart filled with dread. She wanted to forget everything, to erase the image of Arav collapsing, but guilt doesn't loosen its grip easily. She glanced at her phone, hoping for silence. But the screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Why did you kill me, Zoya?" Her breath stopped. Her skin went pale. She stared at the message, frozen. Shaking violently, she dropped the phone onto her bed. It couldn't be Arav. It couldn't be. His phone was with the authorities. No one else knew. Her hands trembled as she picked it up again. A second message appeared. "You didn't even let me finish my last sentence." Zoya screamed. She called Rayan immediately, but he dismissed it as someone trying to threaten her. "Ignore it," he said. "People will try to scare you. Stay quiet." But Zoya knew the tone of the messages. Soft, emotional, familiar. They sounded like Arav, gentle yet hurt, as if reaching from the other side. That night, the police knocked on her door. They had discovered that Arav's death was not natural. Something was off. Zoya's heartbeat raced. But she stayed silent, clinging desperately to Rayan's advice. Still, her nightmare didn't end. Because every night at 1:11 a.m., she received another message. "You never loved me, did you? Why did you choose him? I knew the truth before you confessed. You left without looking back." Each message clawed at her soul. They weren't threats, they were heartbreaks translated into words. Words only Arav could say. She stopped sleeping, stopped eating, stopped living. Her guilt grew into something monstrous, something unmanageable. One night, desperate and trembling, she decided to trace the source of the messages. Her hands moved nervously over her keyboard as she used tracking tools Rayan had once taught her. The IP address appeared on screen. It led back to the police evidence storage. Specifically, to Arav's old laptop. Zoya fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. She whispered into the empty room, "Arav, is it you? Are you haunting me? Please, please forgive me." But the truth was far more painful. Arav had learned about her cheating days before he invited her for dinner. He had found messages between her and Rayan. He didn't confront her because he didn't want a fight. Instead, he tried to understand. Tried to think it through. Tried to decide how to let her go without hurting either of them. In his heartbreak, he had installed an automated scheduled messaging program on his laptop. Messages that would send themselves only if he went 24 hours without touching his phone or laptop. He never expected to die. He expected heartbreak. But the messages activated anyway. One final message appeared on her phone that night, longer and more haunting. "Zoya, Rayan is not who you think he is. Be careful. He will destroy you next." Moments later, Rayan stormed into her apartment, furious that she had uncovered the truth behind the messages. His face twisted with rage, his voice venomous. He accused her of breaking his trust, of jeopardizing everything. Zoya stepped back, terrified. "You were supposed to do what I say," he growled. "You think this ends with him? No. It ends with you listening to me forever." He moved toward her, but before he could reach her, the door burst open. The police, already tracking suspicious activity on Arav's devices, had traced anomalies to Zoya's apartment. They found Rayan there, threatening her. In minutes, he was handcuffed, shouting, spitting, promising revenge. Zoya collapsed onto the floor, shaking. Her phone buzzed again. She lifted it with trembling fingers. The last scheduled message appeared. "Goodbye, Zoya. I hope you find yourself again. The person you lost long before you lost me." The messages stopped forever. Zoya cried into her palms, realizing that Arav's love had outlived even his life, pure, forgiving, and painfully honest. She would carry his memory like a wound that never fully heals. And though his voice would never return, the guilt and the lesson would follow her forever. Because some mistakes echo long after the heart stops beating.